Hello, welcome to Vintage Cookbooks and Crafts. My name is Barbara. One of my recent videos I made chili out of this book, and today we will have two Asian dishes. This is the Calico Cactus Cookbook, recipes collected and tested by the Scottsdale Girls Club Auxiliary. And the two recipes will be, the first one will be beef with oyster sauce. Now, both of these recipes were very delicious. The second recipe will be Kung Pao Chicken. And that one, oh, I love that one. That one is exceptional. The beef with oyster sauce, my husband likes oyster sauce. And it's said to put in 2 tablespoons of oyster sauce according to taste. And my husband loves oyster sauce, so I put more in. And that was very good. And the second recipe, Kung Pao Chicken, has hoisin sauce and Szechuan chili paste. I always put my recipes down in the description below. If you go to the description and you click on more, it'll give you the recipes down below. I hope you will try these recipes and enjoy them as much as we did. Today, in this Calico Cactus Cookbook from the Scottsdale Girls Auxiliary, we are going to make beef with oyster sauce. Now, to begin with, I need to make I made the master sauce first, and that was on page 160. It says to check the index, but it was on page 160. And I will leave the recipe, the original recipe, to the Chinese master sauce and the beef with oyster sauce, this recipe, down in the description below. To begin with, the master sauce calls for 1 cup of soy sauce and 6 tablespoons of sugar. Well, I didn't want to make that much, so I just used a half a cup of soy sauce and 3 tablespoons of sugar and mixed it up. And then I needed 1 pound sirloin, tenderloin, or flank steak, sliced thin. And this is Sirloin Tip in this thing. So then I need to add to this a teaspoon of cornstarch, two tablespoons of oyster sauce, it's slow coming out, I always thought they should have a wider neck with the cap in the bottle so you could scoop it out if you wanted. It's pretty thick. Oh, just as a little tip, I'm going to move this over here. This was what I mixed the master sauce in. When I open a bottle of something, I always write the date on it. And then, you know, sometimes people go in their refrigerator and they're cleaning it out and they're saying, how long has this been in here? Well, now you know, because you write the date on it. Okay, that's 2 tablespoons of oyster sauce. It says according to taste, so you could add more if you wanted to. And then 3 teaspoons of the Chinese master sauce. And then a half a teaspoon of sugar and a 1/4 teaspoon of ground pepper. And then we need a 1/4 tablespoon of sesame oil. Now there's 3 teaspoons in a tablespoon. So a quarter of a tablespoon would be less than a teaspoon. So I'm just going to put in a scant teaspoon. And then 1 tablespoon of dry sherry or Chinese cooking wine. And I have this Holland House cooking sherry. And I need 1 tablespoon of that. This is combined meat, cornstarch, oyster sauce, master sauce, sugar and pepper, sesame oil, and dry sherry. Oyster sauce and master sauce and sugar can be used according to your personal taste. So if you like more of the oyster sauce, you can add a little more. Or it says marinate 30 minutes or even overnight in refrigerator. So this is going in the refrigerator. I'll cover it with plastic and then I'll be back in about... So it said to put 4 to 5 tablespoons of oil in a 10-inch frying pan or a wok. This is actually a 12-inch pan. There's 4 tablespoons in a 1/4 cup. So 4 tablespoons would be a 1/4 cup, and 5 tablespoons would be a little bit more, so that's what I have in here. Add scallion, stir, add marinated meat, stir fry for 1 minute or until meat is barely pink. So in goes my scallions. Oh, that's pretty. Wait until the marinade gets in there, then it'll really be pretty. Now when I cut the meat, it's called for a flank steak, sirloin, tenderloin, and this was sirloin tip, I believe. So when I cut it across the grains. So the grains are going like this. I cut it across those grains. And that gives you a tender bite when you bite into a steak pieces like this. It says cook for 1 minute or until it's no longer pink or just barely pink. However you like your steak. Over here I made some rice. It says to cook it 1 minute until barely pink and then put on a large serving platter. I have this oval baking dish. I'll just put it in there. beef with oyster sauce, and I made some rice to go with it. In this marinade, I have chicken breasts that is cut in half-inch cubes. I am doubling the recipe, but the original recipe calls for 1 large chicken breast cut in half-inch cubes, a teaspoon of cornstarch, 2 teaspoons of soy sauce, 1 teaspoon of hoisin sauce, 2 teaspoons of Szechuan chili paste. I couldn't find the one that said paste, but I got chili sauce and it was very thicky, pasty. And a teaspoon of red wine vinegar, 1½ teaspoons sugar, a teaspoon of dry sherry or Chinese cooking wine. In the pan, it said to put cloves of garlic that has been flattened, smashed. And my cloves of garlic were fairly small, so I used more than one. Over here I have Asian vegetables. Okay, it's the chicken marinated in the refrigerator for 30 minutes. And now I'm cooking it in 4 tablespoons of oil that is hot. And it says to stir fry for 2 to 3 minutes. Chicken is just turned firm. Remove from heat and drop in 1 cup of roasted peanuts. In about 2 minutes. Let's give it another minute and then it will be done. And then I will show you when it's completely done and the serving. We like leftovers for lunch the next day, and my husband said about the Kung Pao Chicken, it's better the next day. I give it a 10.